This past week has been extremely illuminating. You kind of hinted to it for a second earlier, specifically in independent wrestling and in the UK with the hashtag speaking out about sexual harassment, assaulters, predators inside of the wrestling world, which I did not see it being such an epidemic. I know you tweeted out your support of the women coming forward. Were you as surprised to see how just absolutely rotten to the core this business has kind of been the last 15 years, mostly outside of the WWE?
Yeah, man. It's I guess sadly enough, I wasn't surprised. You hear some whispers or have an understanding of the culture. I will say there wasn't any specific instance or wrestler that I knew that I saw and that I had like covered up, or there wasn't anything that I knew of and just shrugged my shoulders at. So there wasn't anything that I was specifically aware of, but it really, really saddened me to see and disgusted me to see how prevalent this was. And I have to give my hats off to a friend of mine actually was the one who started this all. Victoria, she was brave enough to tell her story about David Starr, and this all came out. And then she emboldened a lot of women and even men to come out and talk about some of the things that they've experienced, the way they were victimized in this industry. And I think too often we as men, we shrugged our shoulders, or we've said, she's probably lying, or we've turned a blind eye to it, and we haven't given these victims the voice and the respect that they deserve. And I think our industry can no longer tolerate what's going on. We can no longer tolerate rape. We can no longer tolerate sexual harassment. We can no longer shrug our shoulders at the way women have been victimized in this industry. And I hope these stories, I don't want to know that there are more stories, or that, I don't want that to be the case. I hope this is the end of it, but I hope every woman gets an opportunity to speak her voice, to be heard, to be respected, to not be dismissed. I hope all of the people who are guilty of this, I hope they're eradicated from the business. I hope they're arrested. I hope they're imprisoned. I hope it's a real turning point in our business. And I hope that women aren't persecuted. I've already seen a lot of horrible comments from people. At times, I think we have a great fan base, but I think it can also, at times, there's a portion of it that can be very toxic. I think the way it disrespects women, the way it condones abusers and rapists, I think is disgusting. And the problem, I think one of the things that happens with a lot of these movements is that it causes a surge, and then a week or so later, it can be forgotten. And I hope to God that's not the case. I hope this is not forgotten. I hope it's something that we continue to talk about, that we continue to clean up this industry, that we continue to eradicate abusers, rapists, that we get them all out of this business, that we have them prosecuted, because it's something that no woman or man, no one should ever be victimized or have to endure. And seeing so many stories of kids, of people who are underage, who came into the wrestling business and wanted to learn or to train and were victimized is really disgusting. It's abhorrent, and I hope we continue to keep fighting this and to listen to and support those who come out, who tell their horrible stories, who are brave enough to, that they get the support they need, that we don't condone these abusers, that we don't just say, hey, it's okay to go to rehab and you can come back, because that's not something that I'm interested in if it means that justice is not something that we're trying to pursue here. So I hope it's something we continue to talk about and continue to be open with. And I'm glad these stories are being heard. I'm sorry that there are so many stories, but it's something that's important to speak out against and to show women that we support them and that we're going to do our best to investigate these allegations, to get rid of these abusers, and that we have them prosecuted.
Yeah, I mean, well said. And I think too, it's not the '80s business anymore. As a guy who's watched wrestling and I worked at WWE for a while in writing, and I mean, it's a different crew. You guys all grew up with a different thought process than kind of what the womanizing, and that's why it was so shocking to me to hear that there was kind of this underbelly in indie wrestling. And I think, with you and so many guys on that roster involved in activism, I think we've already seen changes, whether it be, a real kind of reach out to the Pride community with Finn Balor. I remember with his gear with all the rainbow, and now, Jake Atlas and things that are happening in WWE. I think it's just now it's time to focus on the women, it appears.
Right. No, completely. And I think, with as horrible as this year has been in many respects, I think the one silver lining is that people are actually listening. I feel like a lot of times in the past, And maybe it's due to the pandemic and the fact that a lot of us have had to slow down. We don't have as many distractions. A lot of us we're either not working or not working as much. And we now have time to listen, and people are listening. So I hope we continue to listen. I hope we take these things seriously, whether it's racial inequality, whether it's the awful crime of rape and domestic abuse. I hope we continue to have these conversations and continue to take people seriously and actually listen, and not to speak from a place of defense or condoning these acts, but to actually listen, to actually want to make our cultures better.